Hello, my name is Jacob Johnson, and today we will be talking about my new album, Reflection, and some of the tracks we have on there. So, I'm going to start with talking about the two classical tracks that we have on there. We have Meditation and Chopin's L'Adieu. So, Meditation is this super famous Bach prelude that you've heard. If you don't know the name of it, it's just Bach's Prelude number 1 in C major. It's like his first in his well-tempered clavier set, and it's a really famous piece of music. The What was different about this one though is that I found some sheet music for the piano with an organ duet. And obviously when I was recording it, I was like, that's not good enough. We gotta add something crazy. And so I added another keyboard instrument. I added harpsichord. So in the final rendition, you hear piano, harpsichord, and organ all doing their own little things. They have their own little lines, but they all come together at the very end. So I wrote the harpsichord line, but the other two were not me. Now, Chopin's L'Adieu is a different story. Chopin only ever proposed to one woman in his life named Maria. And this was the only girl he really loved. And when he met this woman, um, his parents were not his parents, but Maria's parents were not happy with him. Like they were happy because he wasn't rich, right? Chopin was a poor musician, and they didn't want their daughter to marry poor, so they didn't let them get married. And Maria ended up moving away, but Chopin was still very much in love. And so they would write to each other every day, and he never proposed to anyone else ever again. And he dedicated that waltz to her. This figure. Like you can hear in his waltz, this Ladu waltz, that it's almost happy. Like you can just hear that there's something in the background that's just slightly uneasy, slightly not there. And it's so impactful. And so it's originally just written for piano. And I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I added strings to it. And this is probably one of my favorite waltzes, and I just wanted you to hear it and get it. L'adieu means goodbye. So this is Chopin's goodbye, and he dedicated this waltz to her. All right. Next up on our list, let's go ahead and talk about Picture a Wave. Picture the Wave, if you've never seen The Good Place, I highly recommend it. It's such a good show, so funny, so sentimental, a real look at modern life and moral ethics in modern life. Now, if you know this show, you know that at the end of this show is probably the very last episode, is probably the saddest episode. And I was bawling, my friends were bawling, and in this episode, at the basically the very end of the episode, Chidi gives this speech to Eleanor, saying goodbye forever. A spoiler, I guess, but he says goodbye for her for the last time. And they fell in love, and it was a very beautiful romance throughout the episodes and throughout the seasons. And this was their final goodbye before Chidi moves on. Now he gives her this really beautiful speech about waves and what Buddhists think what happens when you die, and just to give Eleanor some last comfort before he leaves. And what actually I decided to do is the music was so beautiful that I basically did it for piano and cello, right? It's originally for piano and violin, but I wrote it for piano and cello. And I play piano and I played cello on this track. And then on the album I recorded it so you get one track of just the piano and cello, and then the next track right after it, which I think is track number 12, is the music that I wrote for piano and cello again. So the Picture a Wave, but with Chidi's speech on top of it, because I wanted you to hear what he had to say. It's such a beautiful speech, such a beautiful power of words. All right, and I really hope you just get to enjoy that, because you know some things are just sentimental. All right, let's talk about Waterfall next. Waterfall is a bonus track on this album, and it's probably one of my favorite to play on this album. I learned Waterfall probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and I really wasn't happy with it when I was all done with it. I never recorded it, but I really wasn't happy with it. I was like, oh man, like I'm leaving out a lot of notes. My fingering's messy. Like And like anytime I performed it, I would mess up too many times. So I gave up on that for a little while. And then I came back 2.5 years later and I was like, hey, maybe I got some free time. Maybe I should try to learn this piece again. And I picked it up and I started going, and it was really challenging. Even like 2.5 years, 3 years later, of me taking, all these piano lessons and all these other concerts, and me growing a lot as a pianist, it was still a really hard challenge, but it just came out. I was really diligent and I left out like no notes. I was really particular with phrasing, and it just came out so good. It came out way better than I was expecting. It's just, for me, it's a real journey and a real story about growth as a pianist. Is how far can I go in 2.5 and 3 years? And this piece is just so much fun to play. I'm always completely out of breath by the time I finish it. This piece is so exhausting. You should come see me play live sometime. I'm going to talk about these next two tracks that are also bonus tracks, which is Lover and La Campanella, and It's Over, Isn't It? And I don't really want to talk about the tracks too much. I mainly want to talk about the people that are featured in each one. Lover and La Campanella is featuring Esther David, who's a really good friend of mine. Picture here. And Esther David is a really good pianist. They started learning at a young age. They're way better pianists than me. And I came to them and I was asking them about my music, and they liked my music. And so we were like coming up with this thing, and then I was like, La Campanella is probably one of the hardest piano pieces. And I can't play it, but I bet we can play it together. Like if we split it up in half, like if you take half of the hard stuff and I take half of the hard stuff, we can probably do it together. And then they're like, yeah, that's good, but I don't know if we should just play that. And I was like, yeah, maybe we should mix it with something. And then I found this Taylor Swift song, and I was like, oh, I think this is gonna work. And I came back to them like a week later, and I was like, all right, I came up with this arrangement. What do you think? And then they're like, yeah, let's do it. This song is so much fun to perform, but it's also just fun to do piano duo stuff. If you get a chance, always try to find someone to play piano with you. It's so much fun. Now, this next track is It's Over, Isn't It? Such a good track. So sad working with the brilliant vocalist Maria Dean on this one. She's so much fun to hang out with, and she brought a lot to the mixing room. It was a lot of fun to work on this one. Such a sad song from Steven Universe, and a lot of these, like, I look back in some of these like cartoons we watch as kids, like Phineas and Ferb, Steven Universe, even like Amazing World of Gumball and SpongeBob. They have some really good music in there. I'm just like, man, this sounds pretty good. And so I brought this song to her and I was like, hey, can you sing this? Can you sing this for me? And I'll do some of the original piano stuff, but I want to write some of my own stuff. So like in the middle where it gets like really dark and I'm using the really high side of the piano, it's this really, this musician's called text painting. It's really sad. And it really, she's weeping and she lost her long lost love. And it's a really sad time. But Maria nailed it out of the park, and mixing it was so much fun. All right, and the last song I want to talk about on my new album is Loop Number 2. Now, Loop Number 2 features this incredibly cool instrument, which I am playing on that track, by the way. It's all me. I know, usually I have a cellist, and I usually try to get them in here, and they usually do stuff for me, but I kind of wanted to do it myself. It's featuring this super cool new instrument here. Now, this is my beautiful electric cello. Her name is Vanessa. She's a bit of a fighter. She's a bit of a rock star, though, too. And it's so easy to hook this thing up to a loop pedal. You have no idea. And so I hooked it up to this loop pedal, and it was just so much fun to play around. I was in here for like 3 hours or something like that. I lost so much track of time. And the reason I called it Loop Number 2, because if you hear, it is Beethoven's Ode to Joy. It's based off of Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And I changed the chord progression a little bit. But the reason I called it Loop Number 2 is because I made Loop Number 1, and I didn't know what to call it. So I was like, let's just call it Loop Number 1 and Loop Number 2. But Loop Number 1, I was like, I didn't think it was anything special. It was kind of like country-esque vibes, but I didn't like it. I thought this would have been way more fun, and it was. I played cello. I ran over after I was done with the loop pedal at the beginning and played piano. Started looping the piano, ran back to the cello, and then they were looping back and forth. It was just, it's so much fun. And there's like cello percussion where you hit the side of the instrument and then it goes up and down the strings, hitting between each one, and it was just such a good time. It's so much fun hanging out in the studio, and this is really where I think I am most creative and most of my best ideas come out. So I just really hope you enjoy my new album Reflection. Let me know what you think. Let me know what track is your favorite. Let us know if there's other songs you want us to cover. We have more coming, way more. And I'm so excited you get to be there with us. Thank you so much.